We finally have the full information for high horsepower Ursaluna in Pokemon Go. If you're not familiar already, Saturday, November 12th is going to be the Ursaluna Community Day, where you can finally evolve Ursaluna under the light of the full moon in Pokemon Go, and it'll get a Community Day exclusive attack, high horsepower. When I did my pre-analysis video talking about Ursaluna and the potential of high horsepower, we didn't have Ursaluna's full moveset, and we didn't have the full stats of high horsepower. And we finally do, so now we can more accurately assess how good Ursaluna is going to be in both the raid and PvP metas. So in this video, I'm going to let you know where Ursaluna stands. And if you can't tell from the thumbnail, oh, it's bad. It's definitely worse than it could be. But let's get into just how bad it is. Starting out with high horsepower in PvP, it has 100 base power for a 60 energy cost. In my pre-release video, I was expecting it to have a 55 energy cost. This would put it on the same power level as Earthquake and Drill Run, fitting snugly between their energy costs and their damage costs. So it would be a fairly balanced good move. With it being a 60 energy cost though, that really hurts Ursaluna's speed and makes it relatively unviable for the Great League and Ultra League metas, provided of course its full moveset is also not that fantastic, right? So what does this mean for this move? I mean, 60 for 100, that's still pretty good. That's 1.67 DPE. That's not exactly bad, right? That is slightly better than Earth Power being 1.64 DPE. But the problem is Earth Power is like basically the same DPE, it's only a 0.03 difference, and Earth Power has a 5 less energy cost, which is a much larger deal than DPE most of the time, and Earth Power also has a debuff chance for the opponent. So no matter how you cut this pie here, Earth Power is better than high horsepower, Drill Run is way better than high horsepower, and Earthquake is definitely significantly better than high horsepower. Instead of being a good attack that Pokemon want to have, it's a mediocre attack that Pokemon will dread getting. So while the attack itself, it's like not that bad, when you compare it to being, you know, worse than Earth Power and probably technically worse than Mud Bomb, it's just a very poor attack. Any Pokemon that gets high horsepower instead of Earth Power, of all things, will regret that high horsepower was ever added to the game for PvP. When it comes to the PvE side of the force though, things are looking a little bit better for high horsepower. It ended up being a 100 energy cost charge move, which is usually pretty bad, right? But it has a 1.6 second cooldown, which gives it a DPS times DPE. Use a time element for raids because a time element doesn't exist in PvP here. It has a that of 75.63, which is better than Earth Power. It's better than actually any other ground type charge move that currently exists in the game. So Pokemon in the future that have a ground type fast move that can enable this high horsepower could benefit from getting it in raids specifically. Will Ursaluna benefit from it though? Well, as I talked about in the pre-release video, if it gets Shadow Claw, then it still could be a good raid attacker in several raids that are quite relevant, where both ghost and ground type damage apply. Unfortunately, Ursaluna did not get Shadow Claw in its moveset. Before I talk about Ursaluna's moveset here, I do want to give a quick shout out to the Pokeminers. Thank you guys so much for making this information so accessible and putting together these infographics so it's easily shared on the internet here. Definitely couldn't do these analyses as quickly and as well without you guys. But back to Ursaluna here and its moveset. There are 3 fast moves that Ursaluna can know from the Pokemon Legends Arceus into Pokemon Go. Only 3 moves. There's Tackle, Rock Smash, and Shadow Claw. Ursaring, Ursaluna's pre-evolution, has Shadow Claw. So it stands to reason that if only 2 fast moves were going to be picked of these 3, one would be Shadow Claw, right? That just makes sense. And even with Shadow Claw, Ursaluna isn't that crazy powerful of a Pokemon, all things considered. But they aren't giving it Shadow Claw? What? Like, I don't know if this is a mistake or if Pokemon Go is trying to like promote itself through outrage content or something, and then at the last minute they're like, oh yeah, here you go, here's Shadow Claw. But they're not giving Ursaluna Shadow Claw. And Ursaluna needs Shadow Claw to be good in raids and in PvP in general. Like, I know Tackle got buffed in the Season 12 update, but the buff isn't significant enough to really enable a lot of Pokemon to use Tackle. I mean, Xerneas is kind of enjoying it, but Xerneas is still feeling it as kind of like a copium kind of attack. And yeah, Ursaluna definitely is not appreciating having Tackle. It definitely needs Shadow Claw to make any sort of impact anywhere in both raids and PvP. So this is just straight up unfortunate. When it comes to the charge moves, the charge move situation is pretty good, all things considered. It basically needed any of the elemental punches to really enable its speed even more. Ice Punch would have been the ideal. Rock Slide would have been fantastic too. But they gave it Fire Punch and Thunder Punch, dancing around Ice Punch entirely. And then they also gave it Aerial Ace. Why they gave it Aerial Ace, I do not know. And usually I'm pretty spot on with the majority of moveset predictions, and it really stands out to me that Ursaluna didn't get Play Rough or Hyper Beam or maybe even Giga Impact. When you look at Ursaring has Hyper Beam, it has Play Rough. And usually Pokemon Go loves to give Play Rough to these kind of Pokemon. Not that Play Rough is particularly good or anything, but it was like a good alternative option for it, right? But they're not even giving it Hyper Beam or Play Rough or Giga Impact, which is just bizarre. And in its base kit, they're not giving it a ground type charge move either. And it's a sub-ground type Pokemon. Like, they didn't even give it Bulldoze, which just stands out to me as just being really quirky, really strange. So I don't know. I'm kind of half expecting there to be some moveset updates before the release. They're probably going to cave in and give it Shadow Claw. And it's a little bit unfortunate too, because another way to look at this is it could maybe be like a bait and switch. High horsepower is really underwhelming, right? And this moveset is pretty bad. But rather than updating high horsepower and making it actually good, maybe they'll just give this thing Shadow Claw, and then it'll kind of cover up the fact that high horsepower is bad, because people will be like, yes, thank you, Niantic, you listened, you gave the Shadow Claw to the Pokemon that needs Shadow Claw to be good, and then they won't update high horsepower. But personally, I feel like both this moveset and that attack need to be tweaked in order for Ursaluna to really shine in PvP. And as I talked about in my pre-release analysis there, even with those benefits, it won't be a household name in the Great League or the Ultra League. It'll just be an interesting spice side grade pick to the Galarian Stunfisk and Diggersby there, like a more aggressive Diggersby. But with that slow high horsepower and even with Shadow Claw, it won't really stand out in those metas. It'll just be that much like too slow, even with an elemental punch in the mix. When it comes to the Master League, if it gets Shadow Claw, I think Ursaluna will still stand out there, but without Shadow Claw, there's just no chance Ursaluna is going to do anything up in the Master League, in my opinion, or anything of significance, at least. So, conspiracy time here. Why are they making Ursaluna bad? I mean, this goes beyond incompetence. I know that they know how to balance the game enough to make Ursaluna not bad, so why are they choosing to make Ursaluna bad? And the only obvious, like, right there in your face answer is the Master League meta. As it stands, the XL Master League meta is dominated by legendary Pokemon, and to get enough XL candy and to get the hundo, etc. for a legendary Pokemon, it's going to cost you very likely well over $60, right? So it's kind of like the Whale League, if you will. So having this free-to-play community option perform highly in the Whale League and possibly be one of the more dominant forces there, well, that doesn't look too good from a financial perspective, right? But I kind of have a contrary opinion to this, where it's the XL Master League meta, it is the Whale meta, right? And I feel like that discourages a lot of players from even trying to participate in it. Why would you participate in something that you already know that you can't win at if you don't have the right Pokemon, and the right Pokemon cost money and you just don't want to bother with that? Well, Ursaluna would be a right Pokemon with the right moves, the good high horsepower and a Shadow Claw. And this could bait people into participating in the XL Master League. They couldn't feel like they could do it before, now they feel like they can. And if they want to keep doing the Master League, well, then they're going to have to keep up with the Master League meta, which would bait them into chasing XL legendary Pokemon. So in the long run, I feel like it would be a financial benefit for Niantic to make Ursaluna good. They're just choosing not to out of some strange ignorance that I just can't possibly understand, but hey, they're the big brains up there making the millions of dollars, and I'm just some middle-class peon over here making a YouTube video wishing Ursaluna was better than what it was. So who's the big brain person at the end of the day, right? At any rate, that's all I gotta say about Ursaluna for now. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. One silver lining I see to all this is without Shadowclaw, that means I don't have to do the Ursaluna PvP IV deep dive, which, given how time consuming that can be, I see this as an absolute win. But I still would love to see Shadowclaw on this thing. I don't know, mixed feelings here.